You guys make this difficult. I should have gone with Sad first. I do want to express my sincere and our sincere condolences to 3 of our families in the district. Joshua Khan. I'm so sorry. He is the son of Mike and Mary. Alex Gallego, who was executive director of facilities from 2010 to 2013, who helped Tucson Clean and Beautiful with our tree project at Apollo. He was amazing. Al Ariano was our Sunnyside board member from 1979 to 1994. And he was awesome. But, so, our condolences to those 3 families. That's it.
Ms. Dong?
Actually, what I'm going to do is ask for a board agenda item at the end to go ahead and talk about the law conference. I know we have it today, but it's only going to be, from what I looked at it, and thought it was only going to be on the legislative and not the law conference itself.
The intent
Did I
was,
read it wrong?
the intent was to have it for the law conference and legislative.
And delegate.
Recap.
And assembly delegate.
It's law conference and delegate assembly recap.
Okay. For some reason, I read delegate assembly. So if it's okay with you, maybe what I'll do is, because I didn't bring my notes for that, I just brought my notes for the delegate assembly. I can also talk again next week about it, because I have all my notes someplace else at home. So I'll do that then and ask for a second continue. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm not going to make any comments at this time. I'll make comments when we get down to the agenda item for the law conference. Next on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Sure, President Crouch, members of the governing board, and the members of the audience. We'll go ahead and pull up the presentation. So we have first our community council. Our first meeting was held with our community council, which includes members of not only our community who may or may not have children in school, but we also had 3 of our 4 neighborhood associations represented for discussions on the district's strategic plan. So our plan is to continue to meet monthly and invite our members of our neighborhood associations so that we actually are providing information about what we're doing and what we're trying to do, what our goals are. Mr. Dawson and Ms. Beauvais did a wonderful job or Dr. Dawson, there he is, on our strategic plan, and what updates we have made over the course of this past year, and more specifically, how we're looking at the work moving into the 16-17 school year. So thank you for that. We also participated as part of a mayor's press conference to kick off his attendance initiative for the year. Superintendents from Sunnyside, Tucson Unified School District, Flowing Wells, Marana, and actually Amphi School District participated in getting the word out to families in our community about the importance of student attendance. So thank you for all superintendents and mayor for putting that on. We're showing some schools who have done some wonderful work this month in our attendance, and we'll provide an update to the governing board and the schools that made the best progress, which I believe is Apollo, who happens to be here, the most improved, and Gallego, of course, who's got the running record for primary. That's right, Miss Rhonda Moore, who's here for recognizing her best overall attendance, and I believe it's in like 97%. So as we're looking at up in the threshold, we're seeing schools really step up and making that really important part of their initiatives this year. So thank you, schools. We also hosted our coffee with the deputies last week with Sheriff Nanos, and 12 deputies visited with parents and students at Gallego and Intermediate. While visiting with us, deputies enjoyed coffee donated by McDonald's on Palo Verde and I-10, and sweets donated by Donut Wheel on Irvington and Campbell. So wonderful donuts and coffee, pretty stereotypical of meetings with deputies. So we might need to look at a different menu, Ms. Veras. Best to Academy Forum. This is really great. So 400 members of our Sunnyside High School Best Two, which is a business, entrepreneurship, science, technology, and transportation academy, participated in a forum featuring members of a business consortium that is working to transform and upgrade underutilized portions of the Tucson South Side. I believe we have one of our own graduates, part of the Gallegos brothers, who is part of that group, who's, you can see, I believe, all the way at the left. And I know Mr. Casara's son as well, who's one of our teachers over at Santa Clara, if he's still there. And Mr. Casara's father is over at Sunnyside High School, and two other young men who are really trying to do great work in our community. So I want to thank them for getting in front of our students and sharing their stories and how they can actually be entrepreneurs as well, which coincides with the presentation a little bit later, so that'd be great. We actually have our fifth annual Employee Health and Wellness Fair to be held the 21st of September at Los Ranchitos Resource Center. Fair will have over 40 vendors where employees can get health screenings, give blood, get flu shots, and even win free prizes or gift cards. The fair will be open to all Sunnyside Unified School District employees from 2 to 6 p.m. on that date. We also have a Sierra science teacher, Melissa Monk, who submitted a Diamondback School Challenge grant proposal that was notified last week that she will receive a $2,500 grant to buy science supplies for science labs in Sierra's science classrooms. Ms. Monk will be honored as one of the 22 grant-winning schools at the Diamondbacks game on September 30th. So congratulations to Ms. Monk and Sierra students who will benefit from her grant. Thank you, Ms. Monk. And then finally, we have our dual opportunity to cheer both high schools. We have Sunnyside against Desert View in the Duel of the Desert. So that will take place on September 23rd, and it starts at 7 p.m. So again, it will be at Desert View High School. So we'll see everyone there cheering both schools on. So thank you. That concludes our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Next item on the agenda is the call to the audience. Do we want to put the podium up, or are we?
You just stand there.
Oh, recognitions.
Yes, I got ahead of myself there. So the next item on the agenda is recognitions. Would the board join me in front of the podium? Sorry about that. It was a drill, only a drill.
Trying to see who was awake.
Okay, we responded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set? Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Okay, now it's working. We'd like to invite a few folks up here, but before we invite the folks, I'll read the narrative and then we'll go ahead and invite the folks up here to join us. The Sunnyside Unified School District Governing Board would like to recognize the employees and the management of Home Depot store located at 1155 West Irvington Road for their generous donation of their time and supplies to redesign and the renovation of the Ocotillo Sensory Garden this past summer. The Ocotillo Sensory Garden is a place where young children can be immersed in a natural outdoor environment with a variety of textures, sounds, colors, and other related elements. The Ocotillo staff believe that the children learn best when they are allowed to experience learning through play, movement, and motivated investigation, and social interaction with both peers and adults. The Sensory Garden was in desperate need of landscaping and wheelchair accessibility so that all of our students could participate in learning there. As with any renovation of our school facilities, the associated price tag made the dream of a redesign challenging. One of the Ocotillo's community partners contacted our local Home Depot store manager, who responded with a company donation of employee volunteers and building supplies to make the Sensory Garden a reality. Store volunteers built a shade structure equipped with misters, installed irrigation for garden plants, and built a walkway for easier wheelchair accessibility. Planted bushes, replaced railroad ties surrounding the existing tree, and put up fencing lattices, and built a music wall. The governing board wishes to thank the Irvington Home Depot management and outstanding employee volunteers for their partnership with the Ocotillo Early Learning Center staff. We thank all of you on behalf of a grateful district. So if I could have Mr. Paul Ohm join us up here. Great. So what we'll do is, as we're having folks come up here. Thank you. I'll read your name one by one. So if we could have Lance Henry. Not here? Fernando Flores.
They're working.
Kenny, they're volunteering somewhere else, I'm sure. Kenny Hall. Rick Hernandez. Rick Olivares. Marcia Moreno. Clarisa Alvarez. Ralph Munoz. Mark, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Okay. Phew.
Me can't even pronounce it.
Vinny Cuadrado. Okay. Joni Comer. Okay. And then last is Ken Stern. No.
Just this gentleman was also part of the group, and we didn't get his name, I guess, so you'll have to come up and
And what was Manuel? Manuel Cañas. Thank you. We'll get you a certificate. So what would be great is if Mr. Paul Ohm could speak a little bit, and then someone from the employees.
Sure. Hi, hello, good evening, everybody. So I really want to thank Irma. Irma Gomez Sanchez is one of our specialists at Ocotillo who really spearheaded this. She had a great idea, she had great connections, and she took her vision and she really established a really nice working relationship with the people at Home Depot, who in turn came out in full force a couple of times, and they're coming back again. A couple of things that I want to mention that were also mentioned by Mr. Hernandez. Sun safety is so critical for our kids. It's critical for all of us, but little kids should not be out in the full sun. They created a wonderful shade structure with a big awning for our kids to play under outdoors. And also the accessibility for our children who may need to use a wheelchair to get around and to get into the garden, because they couldn't do that before because it was really just a dirt surface. So thank you guys. We really, really appreciate your commitment to our community and to our kids. Please pass our thanks to your colleagues as well. And Irma, did you want to say anything?
Okay. Well, okay. I guess, we're just so grateful that you were able to come out and really just be able to be there and support our school and our kids, and we're just so excited that you were able to come out and do all that for us. So again, very, very grateful, and thank you so much.
We'll pick on one of you if you don't do it.
I'll do it. Well, we had a great time doing it. I really don't need that. I was military for 28 years, so I've done this for years through the military. So it was a great opportunity for us to get out into the community. We love doing that. So if there's other communities that would like us to come, please let us know. We're always there, and we're always there for the community. And on behalf of the staff that's not here, we thank you guys for allowing us to do that. So. Anytime, call us. Thank you.
So let's all.
That'd be friendly.
Am I blocking?
No. Thank you. Thanks so much. Good to see you. Good to see you too.
Thank you, guys.
Go down, huh?
Norms?
You're right, it is cold in here.
Confusing everything. Yes. The Sunnyside School Board has set norms, and part of the reason was so we can set a good example for our students. Many times our students are here at the board meetings. Since our board meetings are all live streamed, they can be observing us from afar, and we want to set a good example for them. So some of the things we set when we set the norms were to communicate respectfully with your words, tone, and body language. Respect others by listening to their comments and points of view. Professionally disagree when communicating different points of view. And focus your comments on specific issues without using individual names. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. There'll be a clock running, and we'd appreciate it if you close off your comments at the end of the 3 minutes. Thank you. First person on the call audience is Sheldon Ham. And you don't need to state your address.
Okay. That's amazing. That will be a tough act to follow, but it sort of fits in with what I'm here to speak about. A few weeks ago, I applied at Challenger Middle School to become a teacher in what they called an audio, visual, photography, video teacher, and called up this morning to find out that the position had been frozen. And I don't know the reasons for the freezing. It's none of my business practically. But what I'm asking for is for you guys to exert your power to perhaps unfreeze that, if at all possible. I want to remind you of the importance of CTE teaching and JTED goes along with that. And part of what I actually found online in the minutes or in the agenda from your last meeting on the 23rd was the AZSBA, the Arizona School Board Association minutes. They had a meeting over the weekend, this past Saturday. 3 of the top 10 tenets, I suppose, of their policies that they wanted to enact dealt with JTED and CTE funding and training. Number 8 being fully restored 9th grade CTE, JTED eligibility and funding, so students have the opportunity to explore career fields and or certification completion. And that was one of the ones that was in fact co-proposed, I guess would be the word, by Sunnyside School District. They also want to allow these services to extend to the age of 21, which is extending past the current limit. So if you can go to the other side, why not bring it down to a middle school level? I understand that the 9th grade is a high school level. You guys are concerned with funding for that. But I just, again, want to ask that you guys, if you have any power, maybe exert it to reopen that position so someone can come in and teach these kids just audio, video, photography, something that they can use in their everyday lives to enhance what they're doing in their current studies, and just give them another option and perhaps a career field to enter down the road. And then you could hire me to teach them. So, thank you. That's I suppose all I have. Good?
Thank you. That was the only call to the audience that we had. Oh, Ms. Dong asked me to remind you, we cannot reply as board members. It's not an agendized item, so we can't make any response to it. So we're not being rude. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Ms. Dong?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Under general functions, we have Real World Scholars Presentation, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, President Crouch, members of the governing board. I just Ms. Benton to formally introduce our guest as we're continuing to look at innovative opportunities for our students. And specifically, we have a potential partner that we're going to be working with named Real World Scholars, and I'll let them speak a little bit about their organization, who really focus on providing pretty much entrepreneurship opportunities for our students. We're Stephen Ojeda, who's over at Sunnyside High School, and our biotech teacher, has been exploring this partnership as option as well for his classroom. And specifically, we're looking at Apollo teachers who are participating to look at how they can have our students really create some product that they would actually sell for fundraising purposes in their classroom. So we're in the certainly are very interested and looking at the innovation, and I think you'll see a little bit more about the story right now, and I'll let them speak more specifically about what they do and how they're looking at partnering with Sunnyside.
All right. Good evening, President Crouch, governing board members, Superintendent Holmes. I made 2 great new friends already today, but we talk a lot about the new standards, or now I can say new, the standards, and it's not about just what kids know, but it's about what they do with what they know. We talk about creating authentic learning opportunities for our kids to really be able to develop agency, to develop ownership. That also means we need to develop that agency in our teachers and in our leaders. And the potential that I think the Real World Scholars partnerships bring to us is just phenomenal. The ability to really create opportunities for agency in our students and in our teachers is really a powerful one. So I'm really excited to have Elise and John from Real World Scholars here, and I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you. So I'm actually, real quick, can we start with that video clip? Can you guys see that?
There's a new trend in education that's transforming classrooms into moneymakers. 50 high school classes in the county are expected to turn a profit in the next year.
In tonight's Zevely Zone, Jeff travels to Liberty Station, where students at High Tech High Media Arts are enjoying the smell of money.
I've come full circle as a student. In 4th grade, literally, I got my mouth washed out with soap, and today, I'm making it.
Our soap is really good soap.
Bathers across the nation are in a lather over these high-end beauty soaps.
Our best sellers are lavender, lemongrass, orange.
A year and a half ago, students at High Tech High Media Arts turned their chemistry class into a business.
I would say that our class is not very traditional at all.
The Wicked Soap Company has sold 4,000 bars of soap.
We use coconut oil, olive oil, shea butter, essential oils. It's good stuff.
Chemistry teacher Matt Martin says the key to making good soap is allowing his students to slip and fall.
Oh, we've made a lot of bad soap. Yeah, a lot of bad soap. We might have made more bad soap than good soap.
One time the students tried to steal a scent from a competitor. You tried to steal a scent from Victoria's Secret and it didn't go well.
Yeah, it did not go well.
So they returned to their original romantic recipe. What is it about your lavender that is so intoxicating?
I think it's the scent, really, and it's made out of love.
If it weren't for the goggles, beakers, and periodic tables on the wall, you'd almost forget these students are in class.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Especially when the kids use $10,000 in profit to help the community and then treat themselves to Knott's Berry Farm and Padre games. How much does your soap cost?
$5 a bar.
Is it worth $5 a bar?
Oh, definitely. Highest quality soap you're going to find in San Diego by far.
You stand behind your product?
100%.
By all accounts, the Wicked Soap Company is cleaning up. In business, if you're not distinct, you'll go extinct, which is why the students are expanding into bath bombs. They're also sending me home with a bag filled with soap. I think they're telling me something. Jeff Zevely, CBS News 8.
If you'd like to buy a bar of this Wicked soap, and wickedly good it sounds like.
Smells wonderful. Yeah, I've got the orange flavor going here. Orange scent, I should say.
Good job, kids. You want to turn your own classroom into a business even. A nonprofit group called Real World Scholars provides funding each year. Mentors and support. Click on the hot button at CBS 8.
Thank you for for taking a few minutes to watch that. My name is Elise Burton. I'm one of the co-founders of Real World Scholars. My partner is back there in the back. We're a grant-making nonprofit, and we work with schools all around the country to start their own student-run businesses. When we got started a few years ago, our goal was to put our money in the hands of students to practice entrepreneurship. Not because we wanted every kid to become a business owner, but because we knew that there was something specific about the entrepreneurial experience that postured students towards the love of learning, being adaptable, knowing how to fail and get back up, being gritty and resilient and resourceful. So we had a bunch of bad ideas, and that's because we're also entrepreneurs. And 3 years later, this year, we just launched 200 classrooms around the country, all building student-run companies from the K-12 space. Everything from CTE to STEAM and PBL, it really runs the gamut. I know you guys have a big CTE offering in this community, so that's really exciting to us. Students are learning really tangible skills. That was obviously our pilot. That was the class we started in. We tested out this crazy idea, and being in that classroom showed us that kids were learning the entrepreneurial mindset. Those kids learned professional communication skills as they navigated business partnerships. They learned conflict management because sometimes things don't go right with customers, right? How to work with each other because groups of people are hard to work with. And those kids also got a deeper understanding of the chemistry behind it all. The teacher's taught for 13 years, and he said he's never seen kids excited to come to chemistry class, and they've never done better because suddenly they had a real and relevant application for their coursework. So, and because all of the money belongs to the students, they were able to, like they said, to give back to their community and do things that actually, fed their education. They bought new lab materials as well as took themselves to baseball games. And so it was a real fun experience for the classroom. What we do is we provide classrooms with funding, a framework for business, so all of our classrooms get access to our dashboard to start their own e-commerce businesses. They get a real URL, which is really empowering for students to be able to go out into the community and say, this is my product, this is what we make in my classroom, I take pride in this. And suddenly it actually has a little bit more relevance and a little more importance than it just going home and sitting on mom's desk. So they get to do that with their website. And then we also provide them structure and support. So we connect them with others, educators with other educators around the country, engaging in these types of learning experiences. We connect them with virtual mentors. And we're particularly excited about this opportunity because just about 2 months ago, we got connected with the folks at Lead Local and Community Share to really build a community of educators here in Tucson, building out these types of learning experiences for students. We're excited about this because from day one, it became really clear that there was a culture of entrepreneurship and innovative learning here. And so we're really excited, as Superintendent Holmes said, we are excited about some potential partnerships with Apollo as well as Sunnyside High and maybe Liberty if I can talk them into it. But we're really excited about providing early and frequent exposure to the entrepreneurial mindset and process to kids so that, in 5 years, 10 years, you have kids coming out of this education system who've had repeated exposure to the entrepreneurial process. They know how to learn, they know their own abilities, they know what they're passionate about, and ultimately they know how to be entrepreneurial in this world, whether they're going to be business owners or not. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Is that a thing I do?
Ms. Dunn?
I think this is a great opportunity for our kids. We often talk about leadership skills and giving them opportunities to learn leadership skills so that it affects every other part of their education and how they approach their education. To me, this is another one of those things that will help them to understand a little bit more about why they're here, instead of, why do I have to go to math class? Why do I have to go to history class? And these are some of the reasons, that they'll learn. They'll learn how to become better people because of all that they're going to learn in the leadership area, learn to talk to people and things like that. And I do think that this is a very good community. I know I talk to a lot of people that want to start their own businesses in so many different ways. And we have a very strong JTED here. And with that, the kids are learning, for example, at Sunnyside, the automotive, many of our kids can then become not just working for an automotive company, but, learning how to run one themselves, one that maybe, whatever it might be, radiators or whatever it is, now they know how to do that. We have all kinds of other things in our other schools, and they could maybe learn how to open up their own restaurant from the things that they're learning at Desert View in the culinary. So there's a lot of opportunities that we have here already with JTED. We just started the construction trade. So these kids learn how to do things, framing, how to do roofing, how to do plumbing. And they don't have to always just be working for somebody else. They can build their own companies and hire the community employees, that we have here. I've been dealing lately with somebody that's coming to my house and fixing some things in my house, and it's his own business. He's he's younger than myself, went to Pueblo High School and decided he wanted to go and start his own business, and now he's got all kinds of employees, and he works in all kinds of homes and is doing great with, by having his own business. So I think that this is, I hope that we are able to partner with you, because I think this would be a great partnership for us to have here for our students, for our community. It would really build the community too, and not just the students in here, but what they do once they leave here could really make this community so much stronger. So I'm really happy that you're here. I'm happy that you and Superintendent Holmes found each other as far as, opportunities here. Both of you are always out there looking, I'm sure, for opportunities, and so this is a great opportunity that we're going to be able to profit from, by having this kind of activity here in our school district. So I'm really glad that this conversation has started. I think it can really, it's all kinds of things that we can do. I read the article, I never saw this clip, but I read the article on the soap because I thought it was so interesting. And so I read that article, and I don't even remember where, but it wasn't too long ago. So they're making the news all over the place, not just on these clips, but they're all over the place. And so I think it's something that, our kids can take and run with. They're now more interested in chemistry. Those are the kind of things that these opportunities, I think, will help with. So thank you, thank you for thinking of us and coming to our community and hopefully giving us an opportunity to become involved.
Well, you have so many fantastic things happening. It's a really easy sell for us to want to support what your students are doing and helping them support their own community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one.
Ms. Carroll?
So how did the kids come up with the idea for soap? Is that something that you pushed them towards, or they came up with their own idea?
That's a good question. So for that class in particular, they were already doing soap as a part of their general curriculum. It was a soap making project. It was, a month-long unit or something like that. And that soap previously kind of went into a display case at the school. And if you see pictures of it, it looks nothing like their soap today. It's come leaps and bounds as far as quality and investment of time and energy. And so that was an existing project that they were already doing. But not every classroom is like that. Sometimes it's a student-led project, and the teacher comes to the student and says, we have this opportunity, we have $1,000. What do you want to do? Or we have this on-campus garden, we have this aquaponics setup, whatever it is, we have these resources in hand, what can we do with it? And so sometimes it's an existing project, and sometimes it's something that's kind of birthed out of the opportunity.
Okay, cool, thanks.
I teach part-time at NAU. I teach entrepreneurship and small business management. So I applaud you helping build a foundation for our students to come into a class with an entrepreneurial spirit, with the idea that they can build a business, they can succeed. So I really applaud you, and thank you very much.
Thank you. You have thoughts?
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is update on College Academy for Parents. Dr. Favela, Dr. Dawson, and Andrea Foster.
Good evening, President Crouch, governing board members, and Superintendent Holmes. It's always a wonderful item on the agenda when we have our colleagues from the University of Arizona. And I'm glad you wore your college. We
all played the hat.
Appropriate for tonight, and I'm sure that's going to make them feel even more welcome. And we're anxious to hear a little bit of a recap about the last College Academy for Parents. But here to introduce them is our own Andrea Foster.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the governing board, Superintendent Holmes, and members of the audience. Just as we hope that the opportunity that was presented to us just now will grow and bloom and become something that becomes more of a lifelong partnership, we've enjoyed that type of partnership with U of A. And I know it's been said many times, but I've been blessed to have been here from the inception, and to see it from that idea to what it's become and continues to become is really exciting. And although we know that it's a good program, we know that hard data always really just drives that home for us as well. So I would like to invite Rudy McCormick and Ms. Jeanette Mariscal Montalvo to come up and just share some data with you, and from interviews that they've done with actual families to hear the impact the program has made, as well as these beautiful murals that you see displayed here. That's part of the wonderful program that is CAP. So I will turn it over to Rudy and Jeanette.
Good evening, President Crouch, Superintendent Holmes, governing board members, and guests. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to come back and give this kind of annual report on the College Academy for Parents and kind of share some new information with you as we kind of continue to investigate the impact of the program. We are going into our 14th year in partnership with the Sunnyside Unified School District with this program. So we've had 13 cohorts complete the program. That has impacted 722 families. We've had 1,031 parents go through the program over that period of time. And then in those families, we've been able to impact 2,293 K through 6 students. And those numbers are all great. They're I feel, substantial numbers, but I also want to kind of multiply those numbers out a little bit. For every College Academy for Parents cohort, those are cohorts that have committed to attending 12 weekly workshops where they've been able to carve out 2 hours of an evening for 12 weeks to bring their family together, to get information, to develop a college plan for their elementary school child. That is a commitment that that we feel cannot be rivaled, and shows such a strong kind of commitment by the Sunnyside District families. And we're just so proud to be able to work with these families to help them to develop these plans. Today, I have with me today much more important people to present to you. I've got Jeanette Mariscal, Jeanette Mariscal is going to be presenting to you on assessment that she does on an annual basis that helps us to see the impact of the program. We have Dr. Judy Kiyama with us, all the way from the University of Denver, who Judy Kiyama, when she was a graduate student at the University of Arizona, she did her dissertation on work revolving the College Academy for Parents. 10 years later, she's back to interview and has been interviewing families that have gone through the program to find out about the impact, and even talking to students that have participated in the program and that have gone on to the university, some of which have even graduated from the university. And then at the very end, we'd like to present the district with some pieces of artwork that have a college-going message as well. So at this point in time, I'd like to give a round of applause to Jeanette Mariscal.
Thank you, and thank you, Sunnyside, for hosting CAP for the 14th year now. We're very grateful for Andrea, for Roy Masani, for all the district members, for always housing us. And at every school that I go and try to recruit families, I feel always at home. So thank you all for the great welcome. And I also want to thank the families that I'm very grateful to also work with the families that I do. And I have a couple of families here that I will continue to recognize, but these are our padres promotores, and I'll just mention them right now. I know that I will later, but our padres promotores, Yolanda Quintanilla, Orencio Quintanilla, if you want to stand, si se pueden parar, por favor. Maritza Hernández, Alejandra Molina, Maritza Hernández. So these are just a handful of the families that got to participate with us last year and continue to do so in many ways, such as the Padres Promotores group that I will share. Gracias a todos. Okay. So within my job, I do ask the families to do a lot for me. So I ask them to fill out assessments, to do word associations, to write the reflections, to write questions down. And we like to do this because we want to make sure that we get to know what our families look like. We want to make sure that we're not coming in within a deficit approach, and that we know that there are a wide range of education levels, that we know how to tailor our presentation. And then also just my curiosity, generations of Latinos or generations of the people that we serve here in the South and just Southern Arizona. And so our demographics look very similar to our last year's demographics. One thing that I do want to point out is that our demographics, our graduates, they look very similar. We have had a pretty good turnout last year and this year, and I also want to attribute it to the Padres Promotores, who have been very good at helping me recruit. I know that we continue to see an incline in families each year since we've started Padres Promotores, and this is the parent volunteer group. We started in November 2014, and since 2015 and 2016, we've had a pretty solid group graduate every year. And then also, to our surprise as well, we continue to see that 50% of the families, it's their first time being on campus, and how important that is to continue to provide those services, to continue to provide. Now, what we want to do is to bring families to the Festival of Books, right? If we bring in families, hey, it might be their first time to the University of Arizona, but even their first time to the Festival of Books. So we want to continue to do different, to provide different opportunities for families. And so, again, with the many things that I ask families, one of the questionnaires that I have them do at the end of the year is to let me know basically how confident were they about their children going to college. And and this is a retrospective questionnaire where we ask them, before and after CAP, and we ask them to know, have we provided the resources? Have we done our job? Have we helped to answer their questions? And it seems like, maybe we've done a pretty decent job, but as well, we've noticed that just having the information in their own language can also help bridge, the opportunities together to find that college is a possibility. So we find that it's super important to have that familiarity of language, but as well as trust, respect within the families, because I have that relationship, I have that bond with the families that they can call me, they can text me, they can message me wherever, and we try to find the answer. So that's a little bit of the college gains. We know that there are still barriers, and we continue to see them in the state of Arizona with different policies. So we know that education is still not free. It's still very inaccessible to some point, but we're trying to relay the message, what resources are available. Oh, sorry. No, you're fine. And then another, so a different visual. So at the beginning and at the end of the program, we try to ask families, okay, well, when you think of the word university, what do you think? What words come to mind? And so these are some of the word clouds that we were able to put together. And one of the biggest, I guess, observation for myself was the fact that when I start the program, almost within the first 5 weeks, the question every day is becas, scholarships, how do we pay for this? Money is very much present in the first wordle, and that's the pre-wordle. Not that it's not in the second word cloud, but the fact that money is such a big concern for myself, for other families, that it's very normal to have those concerns. And with the post-wordle, I just want to make it apparent that it's a little bit more positive. There's success, there's éxito, there's metas. It feels a little bit more real. And we'll go to the next one. No, you're fine. Awesome. And then we ask, well, how has CAP helped your family, or how has it benefited you? So as well as what college aspirations do you have? And one of the families mentioned, I want my children to go to college, and after this program, I know it's possible where I didn't feel it would be possible before. Thank you. el que llegue a ser una excelente persona de bien, una persona con buenas y excelentes bases académicas para que pueda lograr el éxito, tanto económico como personal, y pueda realizarse en todos sus proyectos con toda pasión de hacer lo que ella quiere ejercer en su vida. So these messages basically very much portray, we want this for our kids, we want this for our family, we value education. And so I'm just trying to help piece together what ways can we showcase families' voices. And so that's a little bit about CAP, but we also, what we try to do is we get these very excited parents, and after they gain different resources and what they want to share within their experiences, we've created, again, Padres Promotores, and this program is now about 2 years old, and these are basically volunteers, parent volunteers, the ones that you just saw in front of us. They dedicate their time to present at different schools. This year we went to 5 schools: Desert View, Gallego, Intermediate, Lawfer, Apollo, Drexel, Los Amigos, Rivera. We also presented at a conference. So that was the College Knowledge for Counselors. So that was a new opportunity for parents to be a part of a conference where they were the ones presenting in front of educators. So that's a different opportunity that we're trying to provide families, to continue to have them feel empowered, that they know the information that they want to continue to share with others, and to see how we can continue to work with parents. So we're still very excited to work with Padres Promotores. We're extending our reach, and we're also working with the local libraries, so Pima Valencia Library, the John Valenzuela Youth Center. So we're trying to reach out, and we've been very successful. CAP will be coming soon, February 1st, Wednesdays. It will be returning to Wednesdays, so please mark your calendars. We're excited to have you there at the kickoff, and thank you all for attending our graduation ceremony in May. It's also, it's just so wonderful, very warm, fuzzy feeling the graduation can provide to all of us. Just a reminder that, this is a graduation for the families, but it also reminds us to, why is this important for us as educators. So thank you. And now I would like to introduce our faculty member who is working, or who has been working with CAP since it first started. So Dr. Judy Marquez Kiyama, she has been the one to help us follow the families and see how we can track where the students are. So thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity to present our preliminary findings. It truly is an honor to be able to share with you some of the impact that CAP has made. And I was just told I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to be as fast as I can. When I did my dissertation work on working with families who had gone through College Academy for Parents in 2007, my goal was always to come back and follow up with those families years later, because I think folks question, this is an amazing program, we know this, but what happens to the students over time? Where do their educational pathways lead? Do they actually matriculate into post-secondary education like we hope that they do? And now, 8-10 years later, we're able to speak with some of those families. And so what we ended up doing is a qualitative study, and what qualitative study allows us to do is really put together the impact narrative that has happened over time with these families. A total of 48 participants were interviewed, over 35 different interviews, and about 50 hours of data collection time. That included every single former CAP coordinator, director, different administrators within the district. It included 19 families, and those family interviews often were not individual interviews. They were sometimes mothers, fathers, grandparents, children. And then we were able to do some individual interviews also with students who were already in college or who had graduated from college in some instances. We did program observations, we collected documents, and I will skip to the slides that talk about positive impact because I think those are the most important. CAP really has set a foundation for what one of the administrators talked about being a cultural shift in the schools, meaning the students who are coming now into the high schools who have gone through CAP are not entering the schools with zero information about college. They're coming in confident that they can go to college, confident that they are going to college, and they're sharing that information with their peers. And so the counselors and the teachers are able to build on that momentum rather than maybe starting from scratch. And the administrator talked about it being the foundation for the cultural shift. And I think that's very powerful. It speaks to the broader impact that CAP can have, not just with the individual families that they serve, but across an entire school district. Certainly the families have a lot of college knowledge that they shared, and every single participant talked about concrete goals for college and were able to articulate where they were going or where they had attended. But we also saw extensions of CAP beyond what the impact was hoped to be. So one is padres promotores that Jeanette talked about, right? That the families are the ones that wanted to continue to participate. So they were the ones who initiated this additional program. And families took every opportunity they could to share that college knowledge with other people who didn't participate. So the t-shirts, right, were a catalyst for conversation for the families, and they would then teach others in the community about it because they felt a real responsibility to better their own Latino Hispanic community, and they talked about that explicitly. Two unintended benefits that I think are one we'll focus on, very important, is that while the program itself is aimed at helping kids eventually matriculate into college, for some of the mothers who were in single-family households or the fathers who maybe weren't as present with educational involvement, they were going back to school. They then had the confidence to go back to college or to take community classes or classes in English or whatever it may be. And so there was this real empowerment and sense of agency felt with some of the mothers, which I think is just such a cool story to tell. One other quick thing there. And during the first couple years of the program, I think it was 2006 and 2007, the school district offered refurbished computers for families who went through every single session and who had perfect attendance. They still talk about those computers. They still talk about the influence that those computers had in helping the mothers go to school, in helping the kids with homework. Some of them still use those computers. I mean, I don't know how they're still running, but they're still using them, and just talked about what an important resource it was to see that investment, not just from the U of A and the partners there, but from the school district itself. Turning to recommendations and implications, I'll highlight two. One challenge that came up was that there hasn't been a tracking system in place. And so while we tried to get in touch with as many former participants as we could, some of that information that are on their old applications is dated, and they're not in the same areas anymore. And so one of the recommendations that we've made both to early academic outreach and that I'll offer to you all is consider a system that may track CAP participants over time. Track where their students then end up applying for colleges and matriculate into college so that we really can understand the broader impact and follow up potentially with a survey later on. But keeping that documentation of who these families are and where they are, I think would be really important and powerful. And of course, when they can be engaged in the schools, their relationships with different personnel are that much greater. They feel confident in navigating the school systems, and the parent involvement assistants, the PIAs, which I know in some schools may not exist anymore, but they really were important in helping be those bridges between the family members and forms of involvement. And I'll leave it at that, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them at the end. Thank you so much.
Really quickly, just want to present also these pieces of art right here to Gallego Primary, Rivera Elementary, Gallego Intermediate, and then Liberty Elementary. This is a work, a project that was taken on by the families from this last year's cohort in partnership with Professor Alfred Quiroz from the University of Arizona. And so each of these will come with a little frame that just says college, it begins in elementary school to remind students and families at each of the schools that college is not a dream, but that it's a plan. So.
Very cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome artwork, awesome program. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Mr. Holmes?
I'd just like to make one comment, and thanks to Rudy and the team, and regarding just the research, I just want one question, maybe probably more of a comment, that very interested in really looking at the long-term effects of the program. So any quantifiable data that you can send our way that we can actually look at impact over time, so then we can begin to look at not only our internal tracking, but just how we can continue to advocate for programs like this that we know are great for our community. That would be
Absolutely.
great. Okay.
We're putting together a series of research briefs that will document much of that, and I, of course, will pass that on to all of you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez?
My question has to do with, so the longitudinal tracking that we're talking about, one of the things that has always been an issue that I've brought up to staff is how are we tracking, especially once the kiddos leave our doors, it's hard for us to track or keep them engaged in a meaningful way. Do you have examples or things that you've seen in other districts that we could potentially look at either investing or emulating as a way to make sure that we're having that longitudinal data?
I'm not as familiar with kind of the current system here in the district, but this ability to kind of track the participation of students, almost kind of check mark it in a system. I don't know if the current system allows to do that. I know that at the University of Arizona, we don't have a solution for this either, but we are kind of looking at some systems that might allow us to kind of better track families. And today, actually, one of the recommendations that Judy made was, could you give possibly a scholarship to families that participate not just in this program, but in many of the other initiatives that we offer within the district or beyond the district as well. And so again, some kind of incentive system that then gives an incentive to the families to keep in contact with us and to keep their data as fresh as possible in terms of contact information.
I do have one possible example. I work a lot with the Denver Scholarship Foundation in Denver, and they have college centers in each of the high schools in Denver Public Schools. And they have a system that tracks where the students have applied, what scholarships they've applied for. If they're part of the Denver Scholarship Foundation, they have to apply for certain scholarships. And then it keeps track of where they've been accepted and where they end up matriculating, because then they work with the local institutions to support those students once they're college students. I don't know the name of the system, but I'm happy to find that out and pass that along. I don't know if it's a locally created system or if it's a national one.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to find out more about that, because I think we have several different reasons for wanting to track that, as well as our local scholarships and just knowing where our students go. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Dr. Bergman with cost of living for qualified employees.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Holmes, and the members of the audience. This evening, I'm bringing forward the recommendation from the three employee groups associations, the Sunnyside Education Association, the Sunnyside Classified Education Association, and the Sunnyside Administrators Association, on how we can compensate the employees who did not receive a salary increase for the 2016-17 school year due to being, and I know people don't like this, but it's topped out in the salary schedules that we've just adopted. And what we recommend, gosh, can't talk tonight. What we're recommending is the approval of a cost of living, or in being very specific on the documentation that I entered into Novus, which is being defined using the same language that is used for school districts to receive additional funding, the lesser of 2% or inflation, as calculated by the Arizona Department of Ed. And this is for the classified, certified, and professional non-teaching employees who are topped out and didn't receive a salary increase. There are a total of 48 individuals that this applies to. 43 of them are classified employees, and you were given the spreadsheet that identifies who they are, where they're at right now and with an hourly wage, and where they would be moving to. The same with the 4 certified employees and 1 lowly PNT employee. And looking at a total implementation cost of about $1,600. So, $1,000.
That'd be really cheap.
Whoa! I was like, that's not what I meant. $16,285 to be exact.
Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you, Dr. Bergman and Lauren, Mr. Encinas, for putting this together. I know that it was a lot of work to be able to work with the 3 associations and to come up with something that, you know, does our best to kind of make an accommodation, given that these folks have given a lot of service. So there's 2 things that I think we really need to address, given that this came up. First is, and this is something that I spoke to you about earlier today, Dr. Bergman, is this is a one-time thing, and we will have an annual review for those that top off, and we are not using this to set any kind of precedent, even though by doing anything, we're setting a precedent. Because I think for me, one of the things that I always get a little bit of heartburn for is saying, okay, we're going to do this just this one time, but then the employees who fell into this category, now next year will have an expectation that we will do something similar, and I hope that we're able to, but just given the fluctuations in funding and all of the other different factors, I want to make sure that we have this come up every year as an annual review that we're doing. So that was number 1. And I wanted to just reiterate that for board members that if we approve this plan, this will be a one-time, and then next year we'll come back. The second is really working with your staff, Dr. Bergman, to go and speak to a lot of these folks who may have left some money on the table, essentially, by not retiring, and by working with them to go into one of the programs, whether it be SEI or not ESI, the BERT, I think it's the BERT program.
Correct.
To make sure that they understand what the implications would be, that it's not necessarily you're going to lose a position, that if you still want to continue to work, there are ways to come back and continue to work without just staying in your current position, that you can retire and then come back. And I think that's something that we might want to explore, because I was surprised that we had this many, quite frankly, that were in this category. So I'd love to maybe, not necessarily tonight, but over the next couple of months, hear some updates on how those conversations are going, and if we're successful in helping folks weigh the pros and cons about retiring and then coming back, or staying in the district as they are now.
And
it could be a Friday report, it doesn't have to be a formal presentation.
Okay. And one of the things that I discussed with you is we have looked into this. One of the things that we've asked Ms. Barris to do is to create an infographic for us, which she has done, and that we can then take and do one-on-one discussions. I know Mr. Encinas has already started some one-on-one discussions of individuals who have come to him, and he's always been very open to sit down and talk with individual employees about the pros and cons of moving into retirement and then to an ESI position, which then leads to a post-STAR after a year.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest fear that they have is that if they retire and go on ESI, they won't be rehired. And one of the things that I keep emphasizing to these employees is, if you've been here this long, this means you're a dedicated employee, an effective employee, a productive employee. And the fact that we want you to go to ESI is purely for your benefit.
Right.
Because what happens is we have individuals who are making less money working than if they would retire.
Right.
Correct.
And that was one of the things that we...
And if they retire, they double their salary.
Yeah, they don't understand that.
And that was one of the things that Dr. Bergman and I talked about today, where if someone's been in a position for 25 or 30 years, the likelihood of them not being renewed next year, probably not that high, especially if they're willing to keep working, especially since we have so many folks that are in positions that are really high need, and having somebody come in brand new, fresh out of college or without a lot of experience is something that we'd prefer not to have if we have qualified and hardworking employees who are willing to continue to do that work.
I remind them, just because you retired ESI doesn't mean you retired.
Right.
Okay. You're not retiring. You're just doubling your income almost. That's.
But as Mr. Encinas said, it takes that sit down, and we're more than willing to assist our employees in that capacity.
Thank you, Dr. Bergman.
You're welcome.
Ms. Stone?
I was just wondering, considering the school year has already started, we had put something in the contract that would allow us to do something like this without it being called a gift of public funds?
I'm not sure, but I think we left it open, I
Yes,
think,
we
in
did.
terms,
We left it-
of.
we left it open,
In terms of how we address these people that were tapped out. It was unaddressed, it was left open.
Right.
So there would not be a gift to public health, no.
Okay. And also, so next year, let's say we have some of these issues again, and we have some money to pay, there's gonna probably be more employees that fall under this category, would you imagine?
We have some employees who have reached the final step of
correct.
their respective salary schedules, yes, ma'am. So we will have some more individuals reaching the point that these 48 people have. And I can find out exactly how many they are right here.
And to the exact number, I do not know. That's something Mr. Hernandez had also asked me about, but I need to generate that to see exactly how many employees that we do have who were migrated onto the salary schedules and were placed in the top step for all all
This
four
year.
categories this year. Yes. Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have that exact number right now.
We can get that for you.
Yeah.
No, no,
but
no
I-
problem, I was just curious, I was thinking that was another thing that we'll probably have to deal with next year, is that we have a large number now, but next year we'll have an even larger number because we've got some people that went into that category this year.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bergman.
And I think we need a motion.
Oh, we do need a motion, yes.
Can I have a motion?
Thank you.
Really, you want one?
Yes.
I move that the governing board,
Request.
requesting that the governing board approve a cost of living for the classified, certified, and professional non-teaching employees who are topped out and didn't receive a salary increase for the 2016-2017 school year.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
All right. Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Bergman.
very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Arizona School Board Association bylaws amendments. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, Mr. President Crouch and members of the governing board, this is a formality around some bylaw changes that were made from ASBA that actually have to be approved formally at a governing board meeting. I believe every board member was given these in advance, and so we agendized this for purposes of the formal approval on behalf of the governing board.
Is there any discussion or questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Our recommendation is needed if the governing board requests changes to the Arizona School Board Association bylaws. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, you just read 4D, right? That's
I read 4D.
Yes, that's correct. Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Giffen? Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Holmes, request to hold a study session on September 27th at 5:30 PM.
Yes, Mr. Crouch, members of the governing board. I wish to request a study session for the purposes of presenting the governing board with information regarding a performance contract that we are exploring with energy savings and water savings. Ms. Beauvais had put together a webinar with some videos to give some context to the conversation in preparation for a study session with the governing board to then request action that same day. So it's actually a scheduled governing board meeting on the 27th, and I'm asking that we held it prior to the governing board a regular governing board meeting.
Ms. Dahl?
Mr. Crouch, I move that we hold a study session on September the 27th at 5:30.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is Arizona School Board Association Conference and Delegate Assembly Recap. Mr. Holmes, you were there. Did you have anything you would like to say about it?
I do. I'll highlight one session in particular, Mr. Crouch, that I thought was very critical and timely for us, which was in regards to current year funding. Very depressing conversation, but it was information nevertheless. It's important because that law is in effect currently, and it brought some clarity, I think, to a lot of us as superintendents in the room who continue to express concerns around the current year funding legislation, but more importantly, there's still a lot of confusion, and even if, as you ask colleagues around the room, there's still a difference of interpretation of when this goes into effect. So for clarity purposes, it became clear to us it is in effect, has not been removed, but there is a provision this year that allows districts who are declining enrollment to actually use last year's, which would be our current under ADA. When I talk about last year's ADM, I'm talking about what we previously would refer to our 100-day count. So it was basically our ability to use the current process that by which we fund schools, which is last year's 100-day count, this year for one last time. So I'll say that one more time a different way. Again, we're basically allowed to use the process that we've been using over years for 1 year if we're declining enrollment, meaning we take last year's 100-day count to formulate our budget. And so we'll bring forward some revisions with our budget with Mr. Encinas sometime in December.
Prior to December 15th, yes.
To actually ask for approval based upon last year's ADM, which is about 15,819. Once again, another a difference of close to 500 students of 16,300 students that we used to project ADM. Again, it's very relevant to us as we're looking at increases year to year, as we're looking at exploring cost of living. It's essential that we keep an eye on our enrollment and that this particular policy does have a hardship on us. And so that was just a real important reminder and clarification for me personally, and I think for a lot of my other colleagues as we went to that presentation.
I have a question.
Ms. Quintero?
So, on Wednesday when we were in that pre-conference, I believe Joe O'Reilly had mentioned something about more input from parents and teachers to call your legislators to change that current year funding. I believe that still, he was pushing us to do that, or requesting politely for us to do that. It's like,
Mr. Holmes?
Yes, just so I can stay in the scope of the agenda item, we will continue to advocate on this next legislative session as well, and make it a priority for us as superintendents to have that discussion and look at ways of continuing to involve others in advocating on our behalf.
And if we want to put any items on the agenda from the law conference, we'll have to agendize them for future agenda items.
okay.
Ms. Dawn?
And just staying on the same subject, it seems like we're kind of lucky that we're going to be able to stick to that one more time because of declining enrollment, which is not lucky for that, but because we're able to. But in reality, as they continue to talk, it made me realize that it's not 100% lucky, because then the following year, we can no longer stay to that declining enrollment. We have to go, and so now we're going to be kind of like 2 years behind. We become 2 years behind in our funding because of this law. So yes, we do have 1 year to think about it and to breathe a little bit, but then we get hit hard the following year. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind as we're thinking about our programs and about our classrooms, that in 2 years, it's going to be really a difficult time for us if they don't change the laws. And at this point in time, no one's at all talking about changing that law.
And it breeds a lot of uncertainty in our budgeting process, because we don't know what the budget's going to be until after we're already into the school year.
Yes.
And results in having to assess a property tax rate that you think you're going to need, but you might not have enough of a tax rate assessed, and therefore at the end of the year in a cash deficit, or too high of a tax rate and have a cash surplus that you can never expend or get rid of.
It was a very depressing conference. It was.
On that note, Ms. Quintero, would you like to make any comments about the conference?
It's like, I wanted to cry. It's like when we left at the ESSA workshop, it was like, oh my goodness. They're still, like they said, building the plane with us on it. And so when you when you talk about that, you're kind of scared because the legislature is still trying to figure it out. And they're in a hurry to get it done, but they still want comments made from teachers and parents by October 1st. They still want comments made. And they want us to have 95% testing. Is that the way I understand it? But
I believe we're under ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, we are required to have 95% testing of our students.
But then the federal government says parents can opt out. And then our Attorney General says, we don't want parents to opt out. And so this is what's very depressing, is because they still don't know what's going on. And they're still trying to figure things out. And they want a plan submitted by January. That's why it was like, oh, it's kind of scary and depressing and no money. And it's sad. It's like, I was just like, and do I want to continue? I was like, I'm done.
Ms. Quintero and I attended the pre-conference on Wednesday, and there were 4 sessions. Every Student Succeeds Act, Technology and the Law, dealing with unplanned for media event, and the board oversight role on school finances. The 2 sessions in the morning were the Technology and the Law and Every Student Succeeds Act. Ms. Quintero and I decided we'd both do the ESSA because we wanted to understand it better ourselves and decide not to divide up on that. In the afternoon, Ms. Quintero went to the board oversight role on school finances, and I went to the dealing with the unplanned media event. We try and do that when we go to the conferences. We try and split up so we can get more information. I just did a quick survey or count on how much information we got at the conference. On the pre-conference and the Thursday and Friday conferences, there were 1,709 PowerPoint pages. Okay. Obviously, we didn't absorb them all. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that there were 16 breakouts on Thursday afternoon and 12 on Friday afternoon. You can only pick one out of every 4 to go to. So it's really helpful to have a board presence there, so we see different different sides of it, different parts of it. Some of the ones I went to the session on concussions and where we may be going with the law. We went to the ESSA session. What are the where's the law going with video surveillance, both for staff, students, community? Breaking the school to prison pipeline, a subject that's very apropos to Sunnyside. The law on JTAD and CTE and where is that going? We brought home information. We passed it on to Mr. Holmes already to have staff look at it. We could spend hours and hours going over the material, and I don't think that's the purpose of tonight. But I found this was probably the best conference I've gone to in terms of getting some really meat in the information. So I think it was well worthwhile. Ms. Dong?
When you're all through with the actual conference part, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the legislative part.
Okay, yeah.
Once everybody's done with their parts of the, I think it is.
And
I think so. Ready?
That's all I was going to say.
Okay. And I agree with you. This, every year, the law conference is one of my favorite because every year legislators come up with new laws that we got to be on top of. But also, not only that, the lawyers that are there talk about cases throughout the country that affect us as far as education is concerned. And so sometimes we hear about it just starting, so we don't know yet the outcome. But a lot of the times what they do is they'll bring us the next year, or this year in the case, the same court cases, but now we have an end to it. You know, they have settled. And so now we know what's going to happen, how it went, which way it went, and how it might affect us, if it will affect us. They don't all affect us, and some of them affect us later on, you know, because we might not have an incident like they have. But then later on, we have that incident, and now we know because of the previous court in Minnesota, you know, that this is how the court is seeing it, and this is something that we need to do. So I think the law conference every year is one of the most critical conferences that ASBA puts out there. And I'm glad that we had quite a few of our board members there and our administrators there. I'm really happy we had our administrators there. I think maybe we can rotate some principals because this stuff happens at their school site. And it would be great to have, you know, like one high school, one middle school, one elementary, 1 year, and another high school, another, you know, just rotating it so they can see what are, you know, some of the challenges that are out there, not to scare them, you know, because it is kind of scary, some of the things that you're learning, but to see and to be aware and to be a little bit more aware of, okay, before I act, let me, you know, take a look and be a little bit more, you know, instead of acting right away, because sometimes that's where we end up in problems. And so I think it's like an excellent thing for board members or administrators at all sites. So Ms. Prather will be happy that Buck read it in front of everybody. And everybody, as that gentleman was stating, yes, there are quite a few things that are JTED related in the things that we discussed on Saturday. Unfortunately, though, it's just that we're discussing them so far to take to the legislator. We don't have them resolved yet. We don't have the money that we need yet. So I don't know if he understood that part. Yes, we are taking it. Yes, ASBA and its members are supporting it, but we don't have all the funding yet.
We don't have the legislative power to make it happen.
Right, exactly. We don't have that power yet, but Sunnyside was noted as being the ones up there really fighting for JTED. We also had a 98% carryover on the change, and I don't know how many of you might have seen this or they sent it out yet, but they're going to change the way they're categorizing those things that we're sending out, you know, things that we get. So now there's 3 categories. One is resources for schools. It talks about school finance and all that. Providing full day K, the JTEDs. It's all that has to do with the financial part. And then local control and governments is going to be their second area that they're going to categorize things into. And the third is the state education policies, once again about JTED, but also requiring charter holders and applicants to use their local entities' most recent demographic studies to justify that they need new schools. Those are some of the things that we're going to be fighting for, but now they're all in categories. I won't go over all the government things that we went through. There's 12 of them, but
It only took 4 hours.
it only took 4 hours. But I just want to hit on a couple of them that were the most difficult, I think, to pass through, and it kept on, you know, they had a hard time. One of them is, and every year we have this issue, making the legal age for being in high school to 18 versus 16. And every year at ASBA, we have people on both sides. And every year, the people on the age 16 win. But this is the first time that the people on 18 actually won. Their motion carried. And there were a variety of reasons, especially from the Native American communities, because theirs is 18. And they say they compete with ours because the state is 16 and theirs is 18. So they made a very compelling argument, as well as many other people that were there talking, many of them personally, about the need to make sure that our children stay in school till the age of 18. And so finally, for the first time, we had that go through. And that, also went with the JTED age requirements of to go to 21, to be able to pay for them up to the age of 21. Full-day kindergarten, believe it or not, that's argued a lot by many of the board members. I don't understand that. But there are many board members that just feel, well, first of all, the majority of those board members that are against the full-day funding, it's because they're against kindergarten full-day. They feel that it's too much for our kids, and that we shouldn't be pushing our kids to go to school full days when they're in kindergarten, that we should have half days. There's a lot of people that have that argument, that we should not be, and as such, to try to get us to do that, they're trying to make sure that we don't get the funding for the full-day kindergarten, because they don't believe in full-day kindergarten. There's a lot of people that feel that way, but thankfully, it carried 94%, much lower than many of the other ones, but it still carried. And of course, along with that was funding for preschools, for the same reason. They do not believe that children should be going to school at such a young age. The problem is that a lot of these people, they still put them into enrichment programs, their children, but our children can't afford that. Our children, if they're not given the opportunities that we give them here in this district, they're more than likely going to be nana and tatas, which is nothing wrong with that, but there's no enrichment with that. There's nothing there as far as making sure that we hit that mandated third grade. So they're mandating third grade, but they're not funding us for preschool. They're not funding us for full-day kinder. And so it becomes, like a huge challenge especially for communities like ours. So that motion carried, but it was probably one of the least of all of the motions that carried, was that one. Then, let's see, competitive salaries, that one carried, but it was kind of hard. They wanted to do better salaries for teachers, and once again, they're feeling that, I don't know why, that we don't need to be competitive nationally. And so, and so that one carried, but it was, they added the words permanent to the item. Somebody wanted to add the word permanent, it did not carry, it lost. So we are not adding the word permanent to the request to remain competitive nationally with our money. So anyways, it was, like he said, a 4-hour meeting, and it was, some of those things you just kind of don't quite understand, but it did what it did.
Did you make the notes on the current year funding? Because that was one that was
Which
hotly...
number was that? Yes, current year
that was hotly
funding.
contested. I don't have my notes with me.
Yes,
on
the current year funding.
that. It was changed a little bit from the...
It carried 89, and it changed to eliminate the change to current year funding and advocate to hold declining districts harmless for funding decline. And it carried 89%.
Yeah.
There was lots of discussion. There were a lot of amendments that were given, but they kept on, losing them, given to go back to eliminate, certain words. So in other words, they wanted to do something about it, but they didn't agree with all of the words. They didn't agree with the words eliminate and other things. But it finally carried, eliminate the change to current year funding, to advocate to hold the declining districts harmless, because they wanted to make sure that those of us that do ask for that, because of declining enrollment, that we're not hit hard the following year.
And the original, the proposed wording took out the words eliminate current year funding. And so the body felt it was very important to put that back in there to continue advocating for eliminating the.
Because they wanted to put ensure current year funding, but no, people said, no, eliminate current year funding, not ensure the change to current year funding accuracies. And transparency and ADM calculations. So there was a lot of fight, in other words, because of the inaccuracies that we now have when it comes to counting our students. They have that new system, it's not working properly, and a lot of the districts were talking about how we were losing ADM, how they were losing ADM because the funding wasn't calculated properly. So that was a big thing, was that they didn't want to continue with, they had to be real careful with that wording, making sure that the ADM was correct.
And I wanted to publicly thank Ms. Dong for serving on the legislative committee. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours, and I wanted to thank her. And a lot of times, I think what they're arguing over is a comma or a period or
Or one word, like you saw
One
that
word.
Saturday, one word.
But thank you very much, Ms. Dong.
You're welcome. It's not fun because it is one word and it gets frustrating because you get, hours. This is like 8 hours of arguing on these few little words, and it's arguing on everybody's. Like Sunnyside was there and Peoria's was there, so it's like condensing everything to these 3 pages from the thousands that they got. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
Ms. Dong, did you want to continue this item on to the next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I will only talk about one, no more than 2 of the breakout sessions, because we've hit most of the breakout sessions. But if there's like 1 or 2 that we haven't talked, because like you said, we went to different ones.
Right.
And I feel that it's important for our staff to hear about it, I'll bring it. But if we can put it on the agenda, that'd be great.
So could we have the
I
board
move
agree?
that we continue the discussion on the ASBA Law Conference for the following board meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items?
No.
Wow.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Need 'em. Or are you just gonna wait for ASBA to send you the stuff?
Yeah, I'm gonna put them, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take the red line.
Mine is like chicken.